January 30th, 1943. Hermann Göring, commander of the Luftwaffe, stood at a microphone to address the German people. 10 years of Nazi rule, total command of the skies. At exactly 3 minutes past 11, his voice faltered. 3 British aircraft had just appeared over Berlin, flying through German airspace unarmed. 16 fighters scrambled. Not one got within firing range. The raiders finished their run and accelerated home, while every anti-aircraft gun below fired shells that burst uselessly thousands of feet beneath them. They were made of wood, and they had just humiliated the most powerful air force in the world in front of the entire German population. The story of the de Havilland Mosquito begins in a German intelligence report filed in early 1941 and promptly dismissed as nonsense. German agents in neutral Sweden had obtained specifications for a new British aircraft, and what they sent home read like enemy propaganda. A bomber built almost entirely from wood, birch plywood bonded with balsa and spruce, no defensive armament, 2 crew members betting their lives on speed, with an estimated top speed faster than fighters. The German Air Ministry read this and laughed. One senior engineer wrote that the British were claiming speeds beyond anything in operational service, either misinformation or evidence of resource shortages so desperate that Britain was reduced to building bombers from lumber. Proof of economic weakness, he concluded, not technical genius. Germany had essentially invented the modern military bomber, heavily armed armored machines that commanded respect, making Britain's plywood warplane confirm everything the Reich said about British decline. So the Mosquito became a joke before a single German had ever seen one. English furniture, they called it, right up until someone actually tried to catch one. September 19, 1942, 27,000 feet above Berlin. German radar picked up a single contact at an impossible speed. Controllers scrambled 12 Bf-109s, the Luftwaffe's most advanced fighter, and sent them climbing hard. Leading the intercept was a decorated squadron commander, a Battle of Britain veteran with dozens of kills to his name. None of it would matter. He spotted the Mosquito from 6 miles out and pushed his throttle to maximum, knowing exactly how to position for the kill. He closed to 3 miles, then 2. At 1 mile, his thumb moved toward the trigger. The British pilot simply pushed his throttles forward. The Mosquito accelerated, not gradually but instantly, and the gap began to open. The German shoved his throttle into emergency power, engine howling, temperature climbing into dangerous territory. The Mosquito pulled away as though he were standing still. For 8 agonizing minutes he chased it, engine in the red, fuel burning toward critical levels, while the wooden bomber showed not the slightest strain, cruising on untouched and unhurried, as if the effort of an entire squadron had meant nothing. His report that afternoon was cold and factual. Enemy aircraft maintaining a speed beyond our maximum sustained capability, unable to close within weapon range despite 8 minutes at emergency power. Wooden construction, twin-engined, completely unarmed. As that report climbed the chain of command, officer after officer read it with disbelief. What followed was not a single embarrassing incident. It happened again and again, until Göring was forced to confront something he had promised Hitler could never happen: enemy aircraft flying freely over German cities. His response was about to set off the most desperate, expensive, and humiliating manhunt in Luftwaffe history. Göring's rage demanded blood. Within days of the Berlin broadcast raid, he ordered specialized fighter units created solely to hunt and destroy the Mosquito, handed to 2 of his deadliest aces. The task sounded simple. Stop the Mosquito. It proved impossible. Their fighters were fitted with methanol water injection for a brief boost of perhaps 20 miles per hour. They trained in tactics no normal fighter pilot practiced. Instead of chasing the Mosquito, they tried to get ahead of it, climbing to altitude early and conserving fuel for one perfect strike. Their first serious ambush came in February 1943. 8 fighters stacked at 28,000 feet along the Mosquito's predicted route, appearing exactly where intelligence said it would. The commander led the attack himself, diving to steel speed his engine couldn't provide, closing to within 800 meters. Then the dive flattened into level flight. His speed advantage evaporated in seconds. The Mosquito calmly pulled away as though the ambush had been a polite suggestion. His report read like a confession. The enemy held roughly 410 miles per hour in level flight. The diving attack's advantage vanished within 60 seconds, and a firing window existed for only 4 seconds at extreme range. The chance of hitting it was effectively zero. That became the pattern for months. The unit refined its tactics, and none of it changed the one unbreakable fact. The Mosquito was faster, and speed was absolute protection. If this story is pulling you in, hit that like button and subscribe. Share this with someone who appreciates real history. Now let's get to the part where Germany's finest engineers were forced to confront the truth. By late 1943, the elite anti-Mosquito unit had claimed exactly 2 kills, both crippled by mechanical failure. In exchange, it had lost 9 of its own fighters, not to Mosquitoes, but to their escort fighters. Germany disbanded the specialized Hunter units in quiet failure. This forced the Reich's engineers to confront something they didn't want to face. One of Germany's most brilliant aircraft designers put it with brutal honesty. "Our fighters are built to fight bomber formations. We prioritized firepower, armor, maneuverability. The Mosquito proves speed alone creates a problem our designs cannot answer. A fundamental redesign would take years they didn't have. Germany tried anyway. A new high-altitude fighter, pressurized cockpit, boosted engine, nearly 470 miles per hour above 40,000 feet, reached frontline units only in January 1945. Barely 150 were built, and it encountered Mosquitoes twice in combat, scoring nothing. Then came the jet, 540 miles per hour, fast enough to make the Mosquito's advantage meaningless, but so fuel-hungry it could barely stay airborne an hour. When one pilot finally closed on a Mosquito at over 500 miles per hour in early 1945, the crew saw him coming and turned steadily. At that speed, the jet could barely turn at all, and it went rocketing past without firing a shot. Even the most advanced aircraft on Earth couldn't solve the problem of a wooden bomber that knew exactly when to turn. Later in the war, German engineers captured an intact Mosquito, expecting to find some hidden breakthrough explaining the impossible performance. They found nothing of the sort. Inside was laminated wood, conventional engines, simple systems, no classified materials, no revolutionary components. The genius was not in what the designers had included, it was in what they had chosen to leave out. De Havilland had identified exactly what the mission required: speed and survival, and ruthlessly eliminated everything that didn't serve those 2 objectives. No defensive turrets, no heavy gun batteries, no thick armor plate. Every pound saved became fuel capacity and speed. The wooden construction the Germans had laughed at as poverty turned out to be the masterstroke. Wood rivaled metal in strength-to-weight ratio and sometimes outperformed aluminum absorbing damage. One Mosquito limped home with over 200 holes, its structure shredded but holding. Building from wood also meant it never competed for Germany's most precious war material. Mosquitoes were built in furniture workshops, boat yards, and piano factories across Britain, never draining aluminum from a Spitfire. Nearly 8,000 Mosquitoes were built across the war. Not one stole aluminum from a more conventional warplane. The final numbers told the story without mercy. By day, German fighters almost never caught the Mosquito. The handful that tried burned engines and fuel chasing a target that simply pulled away. It was a different story at night and under flak, where the Reich's night fighters and anti-aircraft guns eventually accounted for the bulk of the roughly 1,000 Mosquitoes the RAF lost across the war. But over Berlin, in daylight, in front of Göring himself, the Luftwaffe's best fighters and its 2 specialized Hunter units never solved the problem, disbanded having lost more of their own aircraft than they ever destroyed. Göring's verdict became one of the most quoted admissions in aviation history. Seeing the Mosquito made him furious, he said, green with envy that the British could knock together a beautiful wooden aircraft, built in piano factories, with a speed they kept increasing. They had the geniuses, he admitted, and Germany had the nincompoops. The commander of the German Luftwaffe had just admitted publicly that a wooden bomber had beaten him. Speed was the only defense, and once Britain was fast enough, nothing else mattered. The Mosquito didn't win through bigger guns, secret technology, or superior numbers. It won because de Havilland built one aircraft to do one mission perfectly and eliminated everything that might have slowed it down. Hit that like button for the crews who flew these machines over Berlin, unarmed, trusting nothing but speed and engineering. Subscribe so you never miss a story like this. Drop a comment on what surprised you most. The wooden bomber they laughed at became the aircraft they could never catch, and Germany never stopped paying for the moment it decided to laugh.